Hey everybody, thanks again for joining us. My name's Josh Smith. We got Griffin Smith over here.
What's up?
And Dakota Yates up there above me.
Or to the right.
Yeah, or to the wherever.
Wherever you're located on screen.
Currently in Pleasanton, so 50 miles away, wherever. We're in Stockton right now at my dad's house. But thanks again for joining us on this podcast on Hope for Living. This channel is all about giving you hope when life feels hopeless. We live in a world where there's so much bad news out there, and we want to give you good news. We want to give you hope when life feels hopeless. And so today, the title of our podcast episode, our second one, which I think is pretty cool, Numero Dos. Today we're going to be, I feel
not how it's pronounced.
Hey, I did fail Spanish in high school 3 times.
Yeah, we see that.
So
when you confidently, I'm pretty sure you said numero, which is
numero,
not Spanish.
Regardless, this episode is titled "Hope During Doubt and Death," and we're in a time where a lot of people, maybe yourself, are experiencing doubt. Some of us are scared of death because of the coronavirus. Some of us know somebody that's recently died. And so we want to talk about how you could have hope during doubt and death. And there's really no other perfect time to talk about this than on Holy Week, especially Easter weekend, which is right now. We're recording this on Saturday. And so we're going to get to, within the context of Easter and Easter weekend and everything that Jesus did, we're going to get to talk about how to have hope during doubt and during death. But before we get into it, dive deep into that and get super serious, just want to talk for a little bit about some just favorite Easter memories over the years, funny memories. You guys got anything to share with people on just like favorite Easter memories over the years?
You got anything, Coda? I don't. No, I have to think. I have to think a little bit longer.
Do you remember that challenge? It was like a dancing challenge.
Oh, the Harlem
Shake.
Oh my gosh, the Harlem Shake.
Yeah.
1 year
that was bad.
Easter, we did the Harlem Shake.
Our whole family,
like extended family as well.
Grandparents.
That was an interesting experience. I don't know if I would say that's my favorite, but it's just the first one that came into my mind.
You know what's funny is
that challenge stayed around too long.
Way too long. Well, our stepdad, Jack, who is now a famous YouTuber, I believe on his original channel, before he made his Locker Nuts channel, I believe that video can still be found on his old channel.
Oh gosh.
The Chestnuts. Don't try to find it.
Don't
probably
reference the channel. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Terrible.
You can find the link.
Click the link below. I'm dressed up as an Easter bunny and I'm dancing weird. No, that's really. That's a funny Easter memory. I forgot that we.
It's fun though. That's fun though. I don't think I have anyone like that. Most of my Easter memories are just like finding eggs and having good food.
Yeah.
You know?
That's cool.
I'm trying to think of anything funny that's happened. I mean, I remember my grandma always used to hide all the eggs, right? All the candy, and then there was one money egg, and I always found it. And if I didn't find it, I took it from whoever did find it. That's right.
That is true. There was always that one money egg in our family as well.
It's like $1,000.
Well, no. Like
wow, really?
Maybe $5. $10 was the max, I think.
Yeah, something
for the money.
Actually, I got 20 a couple times.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I found a 10-carat diamond in one once.
Oh my gosh! Holy crap!
I'd go to that Easter egg hunt for sure.
Yeah, I know.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, on the more, I guess, serious side, one of my favorite memories of Easter too is for those listening, we all grew up going to the same church, Cornerstone Fellowship in Livermore, ever since we were little. I think your family started probably going there first, I think, because they invited our parents to go,
I think it was, if that's the case, it was probably weeks or months in between. So basically the same time.
Yeah, because we went there from the time we were 5 to where you guys still go there, and I visit when I can. But I just Easter memories of Pastor Steve's sermons and just seeing people.
Yeah.
He'd always invite people to stand to receive Christ in front of everybody. And every year I was just always so excited to like see people respond to his messages. And like, I don't know, that's always a really cool Easter memory too. As a kid to be a part of that and see God reach thousands of people through his ministry. But I guess since that was a more kind of serious Easter memory.
Sure.
So how we're going to be talking about how to have hope during doubt and death is we're going to be going through the Easter weekend day by day. So you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Friday is what is often called Good Friday. And some people are confused by the name Good Friday because Good Friday is actually the day that we celebrate Jesus' crucifixion on the cross and how he was killed. And so we're going to refer to that day as the day of death. And then the following day, Saturday on Easter weekend, we're going to call the day of doubt because Saturday was kind of this weird day for all of Jesus' disciples where he had died and they weren't really expecting that. They were expecting him to do all these amazing things. And it seems to just like the road kind of ends and they're kind of doubting everything and they're confused. And so we're going to talk about the day of doubt. And then ultimately Sunday, the resurrection day where Jesus defeats death. He comes back to life. And ultimately that's the day of hope. And so we're going to kind of just take it day by day. And Dakota, I'd just love to hear from you. Let's start with Friday, the day of death, which I mean sounds kind of dramatic and daunting. And
it is dramatic and daunting.
It's kind of crazy, but it is the day of death.
Dia de Muertos for Spanish speakers, Josh, which you know very well.
That's great.
The translating part.
We just got an international audience now.
We really did.
We just went global. No, but Dakota, can you maybe speak on what it's like to experience the days of death, or maybe just speak it even more broadly, like you said earlier, days of just loss in life, and what you would say to those that are maybe experiencing that right now?
Yeah. So when you asked me, hey, you're going to be talking about this, like maybe we could talk about the day of death. Griffin brought up that, whether it's death or loss, it obviously some can feel more weighted than the others, but it all kind of has the same effect on us, whether it's the death of a family member, the death of a career, the death of a job, loss of a job, or the loss of opportunity, the loss of a dream, the loss of, there's lots of different types of losses that really affect us very deeply and affected me very deeply across the board. So, I mean, we all have our examples of death, examples of loss in our lives that have really shaped us who we are and have really impacted us. For me, I've lost siblings, I've lost family homes, I've lost opportunities, I've lost dreams, and it always, that initial impact always gets me kind of the same way. It's almost surreal, and that's what I mean. Like death is and loss. It's not something that we set out to do, obviously, right? But we're setting out to do like accomplish some goal. I want to get into that school. I want to get here in my job. I want to start this business, whatever. We never expect, this might die. This might be lost. So when it happens, we all just feel that shock at first. And I don't know. I just feel like when I would feel that shock, I'd always try to take myself out of my body and kind of remember that feeling and remember what that it's temporary, and remember that it's something that will pass. That's how I always approached it. And I kind of got that and thinking back to the story of the crucifixion in the Bible. One thing that isn't touched on a lot is that before the actual crucifixion, Jesus is literally telling the disciples step by step what's going to happen, which I never even think of that before. And they're still shocked. They're still absolutely shaken to the core, right? So I always, when I'm faced with, I guess I feel like I always do this, and I never remember where it came from, but if I'm breaking it down and thinking about it, on what, the example that Jesus gave or what he's given us and how to handle these certain things, Jesus always has a plan, whether we, are taking it as truth or, we believe it or not, it's there. And we can choose to have faith in that and lean on that. And honestly, those will make those losses and those days of death much less impactful.
Wow.
There'll barely even be barriers in that case.
Wow.
We're saying Jesus has a plan for my life, and he, gives us that plan. He promises us certain things in the Bible on what, he can give us in life. And he did the same thing with the disciples. So during the days of death, if I just remember, God does have a plan. He's, laid it out. What do I have to worry about? This death does, have a short-term sting, but I know the long-term, this Sunday's coming, the hope will come and will last much longer, because that's what the plan is. So, and especially, it's probably for me, I'm a big planner. I like to know the step-by-steps. So when something like death or loss happens, it does shake me.
Yeah.
God does actually have a plan. It totally shapes the way I look at that day of death, that day of loss.
Totally. And I mean, I think one of the things that's cool about, our friendship of, you and me 25 years and then you and Griffin 23 years, only because 2 years younger.
Lesser.
No, but we've all been around one another on our biggest days of death.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like to think about that.
Wow. Yeah.
Friendship and relationship. Like I can, like, when you're talking about Dakota, like man, I lost a sibling once, like I lost a dream once, like there was a school I wanted to get into that I didn't want to get into, like all these losses, and it's like triggering memories for me, even when like I was there with you and for you and experiencing the hurt and the shock of that loss. And I know Griffin would say the same, and I know you've been for me on my biggest losses as well. Where maybe sometimes they were losses that I put on myself because of something stupid I did, or just something that was completely out of our control that happened. And I wasn't even thinking of that as we were entering into this conversation, but just like how cool it is that we've all been together on those days of death together.
I think helps. Really great point, and I'm glad you actually brought that up, because I think it doesn't minimize the reality of death or what we're calling a loss, and we're applying that not just to like somebody physically dying, but to anything. Like we're talking about dreams or jobs or a relationship, whatever it may be. And with that loss, there's always heartache that's attached when you have a loss. And I think what helps when you're going through heartache is to be able to be with people. And I think it's really beautiful to go like, wow, we've been able to walk through so many seasons together. And my hope would be for you right now, maybe you're listening and you're walking through something alone, a loss alone, a heartache by yourself. And I would just say to you, I wouldn't isolate yourself. I would find, as many people as you can that love you and especially love God. They're going to be able to speak into your situation and not minimize what you're going through, but really walk you through it. You never like take away the weight of or the reality of the situation from somebody. That's what always sucks. But I think the beauty of friendship is going like, I don't know when we're going to get out of this, but I'm with you, Yeah.
And I think what's so cool about that is not only if you, have those relationships, will you be surrounded by people that understand what you're going through and they're empathetic towards you and love you. But one of the most comforting truths about going through the valley of the shadow of death, like Psalm chapter 23 says, is not only are you not alone because maybe there's some people in your life that care about you, but only God is with you and he knows exactly what it is like to go through the day of death, because ultimately that's what Jesus did on the day of death. And really that's the heart of the Christian faith, is that God knows what it's like for you when you experience pain, because ultimately he experienced the most excruciating type of pain on the cross. A lot of people, they only think about the physical pain of the cross. Like, man, it must have really hurt for Jesus to be whipped and to have, a crown of thorns pressed on his head and to be beaten and to have nails driven through his hands and feet, and have the spear stab his side. And all those things were extremely painful. I mean, the Romans were masters at torture, and it was extremely painful. And ultimately, it didn't even end by loss of blood, but it was through the suffocation of them having to push themselves up on the cross to get a breath. And ultimately, that's how Jesus died. It was by suffocation. So it was a very painful physical death, but really the greatest pain and the greatest loss was actually the spiritual loss, because it was in that moment of Jesus being on the cross. He was carrying the weight of your sin and of my sin and all of our sin. He was dying the death that we deserved. He didn't deserve to die the death, but he went in our place for our sins. And I think Romans chapter 5, verse 8 says it the best, where it says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Meaning that when you turned your back on God, when you ran away from God, and when you sinned against God, he looked at you and he loved you, and he loved you so much, he died in your place for your sins. And I mean, that's what's so amazing about even the day of death, is that even though we might have it and it might feel hopeless, we can know that God knows what it feels like. And ultimately, not only does he know what it feels like, but ultimately he went through death so that ultimately our death wouldn't have to be the end of our stories, that our death could actually be a doorway into his forgiveness and ultimately into seeing him in heaven if we place our faith in him, which I think is obviously the most encouraging thing about that. But talking about Fridays and the days of death, but there's always, after that initial shock, like you were talking about, Dakota, sometimes it like kind of starts to set in a little bit. The loss starts to set in, and you start to doubt things, and you start to freak out, and it's like, okay, well, what's next? What is going to happen in my life? What is going on? And that's kind of what started to happen on Saturday after Jesus died with his disciples. And Griff, do you want to maybe talk about what the disciples' experience was on Saturday, and maybe even relate that to what we're going through now as a humanity and as in the world right now with the coronavirus and everything?
Sure. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this actually lately, and how little we talk about Saturday as a church and as just people who love Jesus and love the Bible. It's like the implications of Saturday to me are huge, because we know what happens after Saturday because we know the story. But the people who lived it, they didn't know that following Sunday, their lives would be changed forever, and entire world would be changed forever. And I think that's important to know and note for people that are suffering through loss, because when you're in the middle of loss, you feel like there's not a way out. You feel stuck. That was one word that just kind of like kept reoccurring in my mind, that everyone who was suffering the loss of Jesus, a loss of a friend, a teacher, a brother, a son, they were stuck in grief. And a lot of people right now, I think, are stuck in grief from the losses that they've experienced. And whatever measure of loss you've experienced through this pandemic, or whatever circumstance you're in right now, I think Saturday tells us that God really cares about what happens on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think we see two people, especially on Saturday, two different reactions from loss. And we see Peter, who in the scripture says that he followed Jesus from afar. Before he had denied him 3 times, he was following Jesus from afar. And I think and if you know the story, it's really beautiful. And obviously we know that like Peter eventually gets restored back to Jesus. Their relationship's good. He's like the rock of the church, and he's an amazing pastor and apostle and preacher. But he didn't know that was ahead of him. Yeah. All he knew was that I just lost my best friend. And I think it's really interesting that the writer of this gospel says that he was following him at a distance. And I think a lot of people right now who were following Jesus at a distance have gotten a wake-up call of sorts, and are faced with very real problems that they're dealing with right now. And I think when you're following Jesus at a distance, you have to go face to face with, man, am I going to truly follow him for who he is? And that's the Son of God. And Jesus denied him, but he eventually was restored. And then we see Judas, who sold him in. And he betrayed him. and he took his own life. And so I think we see two different people who, were seemingly in this Saturday and stuck in grief and loss, but they responded in different ways. Like one, messes up but gets restored back to Jesus. One messes up and then takes his own life. And so I think, maybe right now you're listening and you feel stuck in whatever situation that you're in right now. Maybe you've even thought about taking your own life, or harming yourself, and that doesn't even have to mean taking your own life physically, but maybe you just are self-sabotaging areas of your life. And I would just want to encourage you that I don't know when that Sunday, that resurrection is going to come for you in your life, but I do know that, the hope of Jesus allows us to anticipate that eagerly when we feel stuck.
It's true.
And so I think
it's good.
There's a great value in Saturday, and like just sitting in that and understanding like, man, this isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to get through this. I don't know when our Sunday's I don't know when we're going to get there, but it's going to happen. Yeah. So it's kind of what God has been teaching me through that.
I love that, dude. As you were talking, it made me think of and remember, Dakota, you're going to love this, of kind of a story from when it was my junior year of college. And I remember, since we were living in Southern California at the time, I was going to CBU in Riverside, and Dakota was living in Malibu. And this was the year before you came. So you came in the year after. But Dakota and I both had season passes to Disneyland. I mean, how often do you think we went to Disneyland that year? We went to Disneyland a lot that year.
For a stretch of time, I think we went like once a week for like a month or two.
That's crazy.
That was so fun.
I forgot you guys went that much.
Yeah, we did. It was awesome. But I remember one time I was driving to Disneyland, and I'm running late. I think Dakota had already gotten there. I was running out of gas, and I
was way late.
Oh, you were running late too?
Yeah.
I was like an hour after you because the traffic was so bad.
Okay, yeah, that's right. I don't miss that about Southern California at all. Hated that. Not like we don't have traffic here, but anyways, I remember it was like running on E, and I could have maybe made it to the park, maybe not. So I was like, you know what? So I had to take a little detour, get some gas, and then start driving back. And you know me, you guys know me, I'm not patient. I'm always in a rush. So I got to take a detour to get to Disneyland from the gas station. And I realized it's like, if I do this illegal U-turn down this road, that will cut off 5-10 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to try this. So I'm in my little tiny VW Passat. It was the first car I'd really bought all by myself. I thought it was super nice. It really wasn't. It was kind of an ugly car. But I do this illegal U-turn, and this lady just smacks my car super hard. The driver's side door caves in, the window smashes glasses on my arm. And I'm freaking out because I've never been in this big of a car accident before. Yeah. I remember it was in front of this little furniture store, and all these older ladies come out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? How can we help you?" And should we call 911? And I'm freaking out because I'm alone, and I don't know if I'm seriously injured because it looked serious, and I don't know if I'm in shock and I'm looking fine, and maybe it's worse than I am. So they call 911, an ambulance comes, but I remember there was this little gap of probably 10 minutes of waiting for the ambulance.
Yeah.
And I knew that they were coming, but there was the waiting period before they came to help me, and to where I was just kind of waiting there. And I think the message is, I was sure during that waiting period that they were going to come. So I was able to hold on because I knew there was hope that help was on its way. I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't oh my gosh, are they going to come? Or are they not going to come? I was confident that I had hope because help was on the way. And I just think I want to encourage some of you that are maybe listening that you can have hope and that you can hold on because help is on the way. God and the hope that he offers you through his resurrection, which is what we're going to get to here in a minute, help is on the way, and it can give you hope in the middle of hard times. And so just know that. And I remember Dakota came and visited me in the hospital after, which was hilarious.
I want to hear what Dakota was funny. What was your reaction when you first saw him? What was?
I was blown away. he had a neck brace on for some reason. I don't know why he had a neck brace on.
So
I mean, I was like, whoa, this must be serious. There's also like, I mean, Disneyland's in Anaheim,
he's
parts of
like,
Anaheim, not the best part of town either.
No.
The hospital that they took him to. It
Yeah.
was like the whole reception had bulletproof glass all around it. What?
There was bullet holes in the front window, I remember, actually.
Yeah, there was like, I mean, I don't know if they're bullet holes. I thought they were, and it cracked. The bulletproof glass had cracked, and they patched it up with duct tape. They just put over duct tape. And I'm like, hey, is there someone named Josh here? And they're like, yeah, he's in the back. So I'm walking back there. He's in his bed. He's in a neck brace. I'm like, oh my gosh, did he break his spine or something? What is going on? And he was like, all really distraught. He's like, hey, man.
Hey,
what the heck?
like his voice is whimpering.
Like, why are you talking about it? It's just, this is how I talk now. And now and then
That's funny.
I told you, I go, hey, they're coming in to put the catheter in a little bit. And you're like, what?
Oh
That
my
was fun.
gosh.
Then they released you and you were fine. And
You're like, if
What?
we'll plug right
I think we
now,
got
if
some
you want to
cheeseburgers
see it.
after that.
But what plug? What are you talking about? If
Well,
you want me to pull the plug, I can do
I went to the doctor. I go, hey, listen,
it.
you need to pull a plug. I can sign if you
Sign the
need.
papers.
He gave me his.
You know how much we could power a light bulb for a full day
Oh,
with the amount of
yeah.
electricity.
The nurse is like, oh, he's completely fine. Like, he's
Completely fine.
not hooked up to a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Then we went to a restaurant downtown after that, Josh. We went to
downtown Disney.
Did you keep your brace on at that point?
No, they
You should have.
they took it off right after.
took it back.
Right
Yeah.
when I
You couldn't even keep it.
There was no
Oh,
reason for that. Yeah, that was.
I think they on your way out they charged you like $300 too. I'm like,
more than that. It was like 800. It was terrible. Yeah. Not.
geez.
Because the ambulance, too.
Yeah, the ambulance ride. Yeah, that's what gets
Yeah.
me. So, but yeah, I guess the main point there was is there was that waiting period.
Yeah.
Help was on the way, so I have hope. Hold on, help's on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to wait for longer than 10 minutes. Sometimes it's 10 years. Sometimes it's even a lifetime.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
God's coming, and eternity is a lot longer than whatever it is you're going through. And so just have hope. That's a funny story. Getting into and shifting gears to that hope that comes from Sunday and from, what Jesus did in rising again. I actually, to talk about that, I wanted to read a little bit of the Easter story from John chapter 20, verses 19 to 20. It says this, it's like literally the first time where Jesus appears to his disciples. And it says this, it says, on the evening of the first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. And after he said this, he showed them his hands and side, and the disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. And I mean, total church joke, but it's just so funny and kind of crazy that like the disciples, they just had this day of doubt on Saturday. They're super scared. They're locked in a room together. So they're super scared. They're like, they just killed Jesus. We're his followers. Like, are we next? Are we going to get killed next?
Yeah.
So they're locked in this house. They're freaking out. And the Bible says that Jesus like appeared to them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesnit say that he opened the door. It's just like, I'm back,
The Lord just shows up.
He just like, boom, he pops in. And like, it had to have scared them because his first words are, peace be with you. So he's saying peace be with you because they probably pooped their pants when he like walked through the door or just like appeared. But then it says that after he appeared to them, said peace be with you, that he showed them his hands and his side. And it says that the disciples were overjoyed that they saw the Lord. And really, that's what resurrection does. Is it brings us joy, it brings us peace, it brings us hope. Because the resurrection of Jesus isn't just the fact that Jesus defeated death for himself. No, Jesus didn't do that for himself. He did it for you. He did it for me. He defeated death for you so that you could defeat death if you place your faith in him. And that ought to give you a hope if you believe in it, bigger than any hope that you could ever have in your entire life, because it gives you a hope in heaven. And it's an unshakable hope that really can get you through any storm in life. And it made me think of this verse about hope in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 19. It says, we have this hope. And it's talking about the hope that you have in Jesus, the hope that you can have if you don't yet have it in Jesus, that comes from believing in him and trusting in him and knowing that you could have a hope in heaven from him. It says, we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. And that idea of an anchor, where like you have like this big ship, this big boat that even if it's in the middle of a storm, if it has a big enough anchor that's let down into the water, it doesn't matter what's going on around it. If the anchor is firm and if it's rooted into the ground, the ship's not going to go anywhere. Sure. I mean, you look at some of the biggest ships, they have these huge anchors that just like they lock them in there and they don't move. And what the Bible promises, that if you have a hope in Jesus, that's a hope that can never get taken away from you. That's a hope that it doesn't matter what day of death you go through, whatever your loss is, it doesn't matter if it's a small loss or the most tragic and biggest loss you've ever gone through. The hope that you can have from Jesus, the hope that comes from knowing that he'll love you, he'll forgive you, his love will never leave you, that ultimately you'll have a hope in heaven forever. That's a hope that no storm in life can take away. But here's the thing, is the Bible says that God desires everybody to be saved. John 3:16 says, God so loved the world, which means everybody, which means you. He loves you and he wants to give you that hope. But here's the truth, is the hope that's found in Jesus is available to you. The anchor is in your boat, but it's your choice on whether or not you let that anchor down into the water. You see, you will not have the hope of Jesus in your life unless you trust him, you give your life to him, you follow him, you place your faith in him. He already did all the work for you. He already died for you. He already defeated death and rose again so that you could have a hope of being forgiven by him and having the hope in heaven. But he's not going to force you to have that hope. If you want to try to put your hope in your finances, in a relationship, in a dream, in a family member, you can do that, and it will not work in the storms of life. Your boat will turn up. But if you put your hope in Jesus, you will have a hope that will get you through any storm. But all you have to do is put the anchor out in the water. And you might ask, well, how do you do that? Well, you simply place your faith in Jesus. You give your life to Jesus and you say, Jesus, I'm done trying to find hope during the days of death and during the days of doubt on my own. Today, I'm finding my hope in you. I'm giving my life to you. I'm believing that I needed you to die on the cross for my sins and resurrect for me so that I could have that hope. And Lord, I'm giving my life to you. I'm trusting you today. That's all you have to do, is you put the anchor in the water by just simply putting your trust in him and your faith in him. And in fact, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that right now. Maybe it's for the very first time, or maybe it's for you to just simply deepen your trust and your faith in him. Wow, we're all, I think, seemingly going through this storm in life right now during this whole coronavirus crisis. And so I'm going to say a prayer right now. And if you want to place your faith in Jesus or strengthen your faith in him, you can just pray this prayer along with me wherever you're at, and he'll listen to you because he loves you. You pray something like this. Jesus, I thank you that you died for my sins on the cross, that you rose again 3 days later. You defeated death so that ultimately I could have the hope that I could defeat death too. Yeah. I'm placing my faith in you. I'm trusting you. Thank you for giving me your presence and for giving me a hope that can go through any hardship in life. I give my life into your hands. In your name, amen. Hey, well, if you pray that prayer for the first time, or maybe you're recommitting your life to Jesus, please click the link in the description right below the video. It's going to be, I prayed with Josh Griffin and Dakota at the end. Click that link and it'll be really short. It's only like take you 30 seconds. But we just love to hear what God's doing in your life so that we can follow up with you, encourage you. We'd love to just send you some gifts, some resources, and plug you into a church near where you're at if you're not yet plugged into one. But also, if our channel encouraged you at all, if this video encouraged you, if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel.
Hit the bell button.
Hit it. Yeah. And so you can stay updated with everything that's going on. And also, if it encouraged you, please share it so we can get this message out. I think our world needs hope. Right?
Come on.
It needs hope. So any last closing thoughts from you guys you want to give to our viewers?
What
before
you
we
got,
sign out?
Coda? What's
Also,
up?
don't forget to smash that like button. Josh forgot to say smash that like button.
Smash that like button,
Go ahead
man.
and smash it.
And then we'll have
That's
a
all I have to say.
graphic that comes
Yeah.
in. Smash.
It's good. Yeah, we're not self-promoting at all. We just want to get the message of Christ out there.
That's
Maybe
right.
a little bit.
Maybe
I don't
a
know.
little.
Maybe a little. I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
Awesome.
We love you guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Thanks.